Hello, everybody, welcome. I'm Alan IHOLDSHIFT on a Frio.
I'm Austin Visions Neil.
And this is the Defuse. My goodness, do we have some talking points today? Because there were some games that happened over the last 2 days. I
There
think that's
were
pretty fair to
a
say.
few.
There were games, like some COD was played, I think.
I think
Largely.
a lot of Call of Duty was played this week, Alan. Yeah, it was
Oh,
CDL Super Week, man. There
oh
was
yeah.
lots of Call of Duty, baby. Let's go.
Yeah. And it's just so funny because like there's not a day off for COD, like ever.
There
It's
isn't.
just the fact that we're getting so much CDL COD every single day of the week that it's just like it feels like Christmas every day. I'm not gonna lie. I don't know about you, but I have watched more Call of Duty in the last week. I was gonna like make something really overdramatic like than the last year combined, but
And all of last year.
that's not
That's
even
not
close
true.
to true. It's, not- It's been a hell of a day though. I mean, we watched the games all day. You had a good day, I assume. Yeah, I mean, it was a fun game.
Yeah. It was a fun day, man. We got to see a lot of games. I think some unexpected results, right, to say the least. But I mean,
Oh,
we've seen a lot of Call of Duty for us at the very least. And well, that's a perfect transition in towards our very first match, right? Because this was the one I
hey.
think that we were looking for.
Yeah, well, it's time to get going. We've got First Blood on the hand.
First Blood.
Yeah, man. We had a match. Well, did we? Did we have a match?
I think it was quick. I mean, this was
pretty quick.
one of the shorter ones of our matches I think that we did have throughout the week, but it was a match. It was a match.
LAT Dallas. So I know that both of us kind of we were praising the high heavens that the Thieves are
Yeah.
looking like a very much so a top contender without question. The problem was outside of the first two maps, they didn't really contest all that much against Dallas.
Didn't seem that way. And I think this caught us by surprise quite a bit because, the first two maps very, very close. I think, just going in towards that hard point raid, first off, they had what was, a bit of a slow start to it, right? I mean, we saw Dallas rack up a lot of points and it was,
Yeah.
a fourth break that had to come through in towards P3. So it was a hot start for Dallas. And I think that, as much as we've been talking about this LA squad being a team that is really, really good right now, they haven't had a true challenge, right? I think that's the factor. And I think we got to see, a team like Dallas that is kind of considered to be, I would assume, in towards that top three, top four for sure, easily.
Right.
How they're able to punish a lot of those mistakes that they were kind of getting away with, or just, through sheer talent of TJ Temp, playing extremely well along with the other two ARs. And, they're able to get away with a lot of big multi kills to be able to open up some things and be able to get away with it, right? Now, Dallas just does not
Absolutely.
let that happen.
No, look, it's one of those things that I've been a little bit disappointed in what Ilya has brought to the table so far, just compared to expectations, right? Not to say that he's playing poorly, he's still playing well, but after what we saw in the opening launch weekend, that kickoff weekend, I was like, this guy's got MVP written all over him if he plays like this. That was not necessarily the case in the last couple of days, but he's coming up really clutch in a number of big moments. And then you still have MVP form Shotzzy. You still have Crim6, who's one of the best ARs in Call of Duty history. And Hugh is, I mean, he's stupid good, man. He dropped nearly 7,000 damage in that last control, but you just talk about what they're able to do to open up that first raid hard point. You just can't go down by 90 points versus Dallas. They're not going to blow leads. I mean, it's just not possible. There's too much familiarity on that roster overall. You just don't feel like they're ever going to be in a position on a hard point specifically where if they're up by 80 plus points, that you have a realistic shot at actually beating them. Now, that said, LA did a really nice job putting some things together. I mean, do you, I would say, I guess I need to ask here, do you feel like Dallas was just the overall better team, or do you feel like LA Thieves missed some opportunities there at the end? Because I know both of us kind of winced a little bit when Temp went to go challenge that P4 essentially by himself.
Yeah.
And it left them short-sighted on the rotation going back to P5.
First Blood.
I just hit the wrong NA production, little W.
But yeah, no, I think that it's fair to say that there were a lot of mistakes that I think were capitalized on. It wasn't necessarily just because they were the better team all around. I think there was maybe just some moments of desperation. Like Temp, sure, maybe could have went in there and found like 2 kills to be able to fight for 8 seconds. But I mean, in a moment where you're talking about the final push maybe being the game changer of whether or not this comes out in your favor or theirs, then you kind of have to be on the same page with your team. So I think that there was a lot of mistakes like that did take place for us. But I also think that Dallas did play really well. I think they made a lot of adjustments from what we saw previously. Illy, I felt like really did have a step up in towards the series here for himself. He went in towards that map 2 there as well, and I felt like there was a lot of clutch moments on both teams, right? It's not like it was just like, seeing these highlight players being able to just pull the rabbit out of the hat and be able to clutch up. It was just like honestly seeing what TJ did with the 1v3. They went up, I think it was like 3-0 at the start of that checkmate, right? Like they had a massive lead. They were able to put themselves in a great spot to be able to actually tie that series up right there in map number 2. And then you go along. They started to figure out a lot of these defensive and offensive rounds. Dallas worked their way back in towards the game, and we go all the way towards what was a round 11. And Temp got caught both in those situations where he had to kind of clutch up in towards, round like 10 and round 11. And well, Crim6 is just like, listen, I'm not playing for the ace. I'm not playing for the kill. I'm hopping that. And like,
it's such a good
balls
call
to do that, right? Like the veteran play, like it really was nice to see for Crim6 to get away with that one and actually pull ahead with it.
Yeah, I loved the call from Crimson just to hop, because I think in any other world, I mean, you even heard Merc breaking it down, the fact that he's got enough time for that regen and also to hop and make a couple of different plays. He just chooses the safer option to get on top of the bomb. Love the call. It's just a big heads up play. Can't really say one thing or the other beside that. Just a stapled Crim6 just clutch up moment. But then the control, man, I won't lie, I was really, really pleased with what I saw early from LA, being able to kind of recover and get that first defense online. Good stuff. We go defense for defense, but then you kind of just feel the momentum shift, and a lot of it is because Hook just goes absolutely nasty mode. And the one thing that's, I think, scariest about this Dallas team is how quickly they take the map away from you. I mean, that last spawn trap on the 4th round was one of the nastiest spawn traps I think we've ever seen on raid control so far.
Yeah, it certainly was. I mean, you could just feel the pressure, just sitting in, and they're unable to kind of get themselves out of the spawn. And then on top of that, there was a lot of flanks being hit as well. Like, how many times did Hook get behind Slasher or Shotzzy get behind Slasher in that round, right? Like, Slasher died, I think, 5 times in a row, either from his side or from his back. So I imagine some frustration also coming out there, just not always keeping up where every single member is on the map, not maybe tracking names. And it definitely hurt them in the end as they got 3-0.
Yeah, that's just tough scenes. And again, the 3-0, relatively close. I think if you win that round 11, there's an opportunity to send it to game 5. I just don't see LA Thieves losing 2 hard points like that in a row. But that doesn't happen here. Speaking of winning hard points, what the hell is up with the Paris Legion, dude? I mean, you heard Merc say that it was before the match versus the Atlanta FaZe. They had won by a margin of 66 total points in like the last 4 hard points they played. And then after that map 1, it was 67 points because it was the 250 to 249. Where the heck is all this clutch up potential coming from Paris?
Dude, it comes from the teamwork. Like any squad that is struggling with their teamwork right now, Toronto Ultra, let's look at what Paris is doing currently, right? Because they are just doing things collectively as a unit. Sure, they're having some big moments like Aqua finding Simp as he gets that spawn in towards the back to make sure he doesn't get that full second on the hard point. But there are just moments where you're seeing them mesh. You're seeing everything come to life. And I think it's just so interesting because you keep coming back to the point where almost everyone, just completely just wrote this squad off. Like they're not going to be a contender. They're not going to be winning. They're going to be blown out. And this is this Paris squad just trying to loaf their way through the season, picking up 4 people for $50,000 just to fill their spot and get players on the team. That is not the case, man. Paris is really surprising and shocking a lot of people. And it's through their teamwork. It's through what they're bringing towards their gameplay. They're really solid just through just about every single game mode now. And they are a contender, I feel like, for this major. And they could certainly pull off some upsets here for us, Alan.
A contender towards the major is an interesting conversation point. We'll talk about what their bracket will look like here in this next segment, but it's just really funny because you look at what Paris has done so far, specifically in the respawns. The search and destroy is a bit of a different story here and there, but outside of one really bad loss on an opening raid hardpoint versus Optic Chicago, Paris has played every single other hardpoint at 200 points or above. And outside of one time they were 3-0'd by the Toronto Ultra on control, everything else has either been a win for them or a round 5 loss for them. This team has looked so invigorated, I guess is the word that I want to use, but it's hard to really even say just that because we didn't have any expectations. Like it's looking not like a revival because we had them dead to begin with. Like it is literally a story that I could never have put together. And even the search and destroy, there have been a number of really tight games that they've played, round 9s, round 10s, round 11s so far. It's just been interesting to see that this team is already a contender. And I guess my question, and we're going to answer this here in a bit, but I mean, they get out of their group into the winners bracket. You know, that's a surprise in its own right. Is that enough for you to sit there and say that, like, okay, like these guys are going to be here for long, or is it going to be like last year where this Paris team kind of had a couple of nice opening matches and then fell off the face of the earth midway through the season?
I mean, I want to say that these guys are going to be able to certainly make maybe a bit of a run and pull off some upsets for the simple fact that they don't really have like any pressure on them. Like, what pressure do you have on 4 players, right? That were not even meant to do anything. Like, they were, you know, predicted to finish last, and probably finished, or rather, you know, predicted to get knocked out in towards losers bracket going in towards these majors. So there's just no pressure like on these guys' shoulders to be able to perform and come out. And I think that's like the biggest factor is like they don't have to worry about anything outside, and they could just focus on what they're doing. And I think that's what they really have been doing. It's just about proving everyone wrong and putting themselves in a spot where they might actually be able to do it and do exactly what we're talking about.
I misspoke. Again, I forgot that with LIG's win that they actually fall out of the lower bracket in the 4th place position. I was still thinking about them from yesterday. But still, it's the fact of the matter of, for this Paris team, you're in a group that everyone thought was going to be the most difficult group. Like, as soon as the picks came through and after like the kickoff week, we were like, oh snap, like this group B is completely loaded, because we thought Toronto was going to be good. Florida at that point had beat Atlanta. We were like, dude, what the heck? Like, LAG and Paris are going to be lucky to find wins. And now it's LAG and Paris that are in the 3 and the 4 spot.
Finding wins.
So it's kind of wild, I think, to think about it that way. But I mean, here's the thing that I have a problem with Paris. They need to innovate and get more creative, because I'm literally calling it the Paris Legion stack when it comes to control on raid, where it's just all 4 of us come off spawn, we flood to B. How many ticks did we get? Yeah, all right, that's fine. We spawned by A. Let's go to A. How many ticks did we get? All right, let's spawn back by B and go over to B. It's just so back and forth. And one of the biggest struggles that they've had is trying to adapt mid-round. It just kind of feels like they're coming in with one mindset, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, I guess we'll just lose.
I agree with that, because what happens when teams start saying, all right, let's just take raid away from these guys. Let's not give them that chance where they have the offensive advantage, right? To be able to do exactly that because of how the spawns work. And, you know, forcing to play something like Garrison, or forcing to play something like Checkmate, where middle map control is, you know, is everything. As much as maybe we don't enjoy those maps played on that game mode, there are certainly teams that are good at it, right? And they're going to look to try and punish teams that maybe aren't well rounded across multiple maps. So I think that is definitely a factor where they might have to simply look at saying, hey, we got to get control of certain areas of the map and block some certain spawns so that we can actually set ourselves up to hold this, as well as come out with the life lead, right? It's not just about stacking and trying to get as many ticks as possible.
It's so funny though, because I don't think any team out there really wants to play checkmate control right now unless they're forced to. So
maybe Optic, I don't know.
well, it may be Optic after that, what we just saw, maybe something like that. But no, I don't know. It'll be interesting, I think, to see what this team does. Again, they do start in the lower bracket, which brings us to our next topic, which is this stage 1 bracket. The final standings in Group A are Dallas, LAT, and New York Subliners getting out of Group A. And then in the bottom part of that group, it's Minnesota Rockers, Seattle, and then London, in that order. And then over in Group 8, the team that's in the winner's bracket are the Atlanta FaZe with their buys, Optic Chicago, LA Gorillas, and then the lower bracket is Paris Legion, Toronto, and Florida, in that order. So the matchups that we get are actually pretty interesting. Let's start at the upper bracket, because you've got Chicago, New York first, and then a battle for Los Angeles as well. Where's your headspace at when it comes to both those opening winners round matches specifically?
So I'm still pretty confident that Optic, I think, is probably better all around than New York. I think New York has had some great high moments. And I mean, they've proved, again, a lot of people wrong for as far as what they're going to be able to do. But I still have a lot of faith that they're going to be able to bring that one home, and I think clutch that one up. So I have Optic probably about a 3-1 advancing towards Empire. And then for that second round, I want to say, even though LA, they come away with, you know, what was an 0-3, I still think that they're a solid enough team. And even if they're not playing and meshing as well as a team, like, they're good enough individually, I think, to match LAG. And they show some improvements as well. But I don't know if they have the overall power to knock down some of these guys who really are starting to play like they were on form in previous games. Looking, I think, at Kenny and TJ as the two big people to start talking about, right? That have just been taking those moments, whether it's search and destroy or respawns, and just finding just crazy clutches or 1v3s, like 3 pieces. I mean, we're going to see a bit of it today, but I think that's the main factor for this LAG squad.
Yeah, I think for the Gorillas, this is a winnable matchup after what we saw today, but they're going to have to play very complete, very concise overall. Down to the lower bracket, though, I mean, this is a mystery, I think, in these opening knockout rounds.
It's going to be hard.
You heard Nameless at the end of the broadcast saying that these are your roster change matches. Like whoever who gets
That's a good
DFR'd,
point.
essentially, whoever gets loser round 1 losses, they're going to be considering roster changes. And we've talked pretty largely about all of those teams outside of really Toronto when it comes to potentially looking to make a roster swap. Do you agree with that take that, let's say you lose your opening lower round 1 matchups, that it's instantly a cue of let's start talking roster change?
I don't want to say instantly. I think it just depends,
Okay.
right? Like, let's say Florida. Let's say Florida, gets
I mean, we're
double first
calling
round,
for it right now
right?
hard, right? Like
Uh,
that roster's not doing it.
Yeah, like I think that's one squad that could really maybe benefit from adding someone new just to give them that fresh start. Ultra, I don't think is a squad that will probably make a change this early.
Me neither.
I mean, they have Insight right on the bench, so even if they were to lose that first round, I think that they would still go forward with that 4-man roster. And then if things maybe don't change for stage 2, they do. But I'm still pretty confident that a lot of these squads will likely still roll with what they currently have on their rosters. And I don't know. Stage 1 is like iffy because we're still like in this spot where teams are starting to figure out how they're looking to play. And sure, we've gotten X amount of games in, but is that really going to tell the whole story as we get towards the end of the year? Not usually. And we've seen that kind of play a factor in the past throughout lots of seasons.
I don't know if I necessarily agree that if any of these teams lose this first round matchup, that they're instantly going to go into roster changes. I mean, for Toronto, Insight is not going to replace either of the 2 ARs in Toronto right now. It's not going to happen. London doesn't have a sub. Seattle doesn't have a sub. And then I could see an instance where Havoc maybe gets a chance. But you actually brought up a really interesting point the last time around, that this might not be a Havoc is not playing well substitution. This might be one of those things that there is something else going on with maybe the team meshing or something of the nature, which is kind of weird to think about considering the fact that, you still have players that played on this team last year with Havoc through just about the entirety of the year. So interesting things there. But I feel like if you're London, and we talked about this before, and I'll say it again, you get a blowout loss to Toronto, you got to lose the identity of we're only using English players. It has to be out the window. I would even, if we were doing overextended today, I may even go far enough to say you build that roster off of Parasite, because he's been the one player who's been consistent from start to finish overall. And let's be honest, trying to find good AR players is not exactly easy to do right now, outside of maybe a couple. There are a lot of subs that are in the challenger scene right now, itching and ready to go. I think getting an AR, there's still options that are out there, but
yeah,
I don't think you can keep off this same brand of we're only going to use English players. So I don't know, but outside of that conversation point, overall, they asked the question of the broadcast as well. Whose bracket are you looking at both favorably and unfavorably?
Honestly, unfavorably, this is going to be interesting for Optic, right? If it could get upset. It's possible New York comes out, beats them, right? And
I
then
agree.
Either way, if they do end up winning that matchup and maybe pulling out ahead, they got to go in towards Empire. So like that's a pretty tough go of things for as far as what you have. And I think LA are kind of in a similar boat where the Thieves maybe have an easier round 1, but a really difficult round 2, where maybe can they keep up with some of the tempos, right? So I think those are the 2 teams right now that I really have my eyes on. It's really just the upper bracket. I think the bottom bracket is just so hard to predict on what we're going to get, but I do have a lot of eyes on Ultra to see if they are going to be able to bounce back, because I feel like these guys really are on tilt at the moment.
I think Toronto actually has the best lower round 1 bracket and potentially lower bracket overall. And I agree. I think Chicago has by far the hardest bracket. I'm not going to sit there and say that Atlanta has the easiest bracket. I still think that Toronto technically does. I still have a bit of inching faith on Toronto overall. But I mean, LAT and LAG, I could see them giving a workout to Atlanta, whoever comes out of that battle for Los Angeles. I think Chicago's in for a very dicey winners bracket. I know that on the broadcast they kept saying like, you don't want to play up against Chicago first. I don't know if Chicago really wants to play up against too many of those initial teams either, because there are some really solid teams in the mix there. Hey, but that means we're done with First Blood. It's time for everyone's favorite segment, or so I think. I don't know if that's true or not. It's time for some Chalk or Talk.
Also, I feel like we have to start this one up with the beard. Are we chalking or talking the beard down? We ended the last episode with, we'll see. Chalk or talk, but that was just you avoiding the question. So, I'm putting you on the spot.
It's going to get trimmed this week. I'm going to the barber.
Damn.
It's going to get trimmed this week. So I'm sorry about that. But, yeah, it's I don't know how much of it I'm going to keep. overall is kind of what I'm getting at. It is a little bit long, a little bit rambunctious at the moment, but hey, we do like a good rambunctious beard every now and again. And I've got all these wonderful products, and it makes my skin feel wonderful underneath. It's just one of those things. I don't know.
You're
Hey,
wonderful.
Talk though, if this is your first time joining us here for the show, we essentially get posed a hot topic statement, and you essentially sit there and say, would you chalk it up or would you talk it up? Ooh, interesting. And the three that we have today are actually pretty good ones. And I'm going to start things off with one of our previous points, which is going into LAG. So the question here is, and the statement is, the Los Angeles Guerrillas will finish top 4 in the Stage 1 majors. You talking it or you chalking it?
I'm chalking this one, Alan. I saw some great things from LAG up against Toronto, but Toronto, let's be honest, they've been on a bit of a downhill slide. Things have not been going great. They've been performing good individually. The teamwork's not there. LAG's teamwork was there, but it's still not convincing me to say, hey, they're going to be able to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Dallas, FaZe. You know, these are squads that I think that everyone's looking at for as far as teams that likely will be able to take the entire thing, the favorites for sure. LAG just hasn't showed me enough firepower that they're going to be able to do that, or at least enough consistency, even if they have maybe, performed, lately as of that last matchup versus Ultra.
So I'm going to take a route here, and I've been looking, and I'm going to sit there and say that LAG can make a top 4 run. I think that this Los Angeles Guerrillas team can beat the LA Thieves, mostly because the map set is largely shared between the two of them. And I think that LAG will make the correct corrections, weird to say, to get to a point where they're actually going to be able to put up a hell of a fight versus LAT. And then if they go into Atlanta and eventually lose that matchup, which I think most would, I believe that puts them to the top side of the bracket, in which they would be playing up the collection of Seattle, Florida, Paris. I could see them winning that and getting into the top 4. I actually can see that absolutely happening. It just comes down to that following matchup when they have to play up against the loser of the upper bracket. It's going to be a difficult battle for them because I think New York, Chicago, or Dallas, whoever else they would have to play up against to get to that top 4, would be maybe a bit beyond them. But I'm not going to lie. I was very impressed watching over this LAG team's match from yesterday. They learned a lot, I think, from Chicago. They cleaned a ton up, and they weren't doing anything super crazy. They were just able to kind of collect themselves and be in a spot where, hey, they actually don't look nearly as bad as I think a lot of people are saying. So I'm going to talk up the fact that LAG absolutely can finish top 4 this weekend. Call me crazy.
You're crazy, Alan. You're crazy. This one's interesting because we talked about this today while we were watching over the CDL games, and we were talking about what has been Clayster's prime. Is this it? Is it right now? I'm going to talk this one. I think this is interesting because you could go back and say, damn, like Clayster was absolutely insane in the BO2 days, AW as well, right? But then he went on a really long period of time where he did not win anything. I think it was like 1,400 days or something absolutely crazy, right? Well over 1,000 for sure. And he starts to get wins when he goes to 5v5. We go towards 5v5. He finds himself in towards, that E United roster. They end up winning. They end up going big. They get a championship title, does the same thing, makes that transition over towards Empire. They're one of the top teams the entire year. They win a championship as well in that World Finals. So you have back-to-back here for Clayster going in towards this year where he had to work around teammates that simply were maybe not ready to fill the shoes that they got put in, but he was able to, I think, really help them get there, help players like Asim, really excel and be able to pull out with these insane performances. So I want to say that this might just be Clayster's prime here at the moment as he's looked better than ever.
I am also going to talk this, and it's for a reason that I think is not exactly, it's actually for a reason outside of his individual performance, which has been absolutely lights out. This is the era of Clayster as potentially being a face of Call of Duty. I mean, you talk about him winning for United, absolutely. Talk about him winning last year with Dallas, absolutely. But it's in the way that he's done it, and I think it's been his public persona more than his actual on-field presence that has led to me believing that he very well could be one of the major faces, if not the face of what Call of Duty currently is, especially if New York continues to play well this year. Do they have the potential of winning this year? I think you'd be hard-pressed to say, no, they've got no shot, not after the performances that he's had so far, because I'll be honest with you, he's got a 1.2 overall KD right now. That's like top 3 in the league. And he's around a team that, if they're finding good success as a collective, they're blowing people out of the water. So no, I'm talking it not necessarily because he individually, his in-game performance is one of the reasons why this is his era. I think largely for me, it's just because of the persona that he's been able to provide and the fact that he's becoming like the dad of the CDL, essentially. He's bringing all of these young up-and-coming players into a spotlight, and he's okay sharing that. He's okay helping and teaching, and he's being a huge leader, not just, I think, in-game, but also just for the community at large. So, yeah, I think this is absolutely the era of Clayster without question when it comes to what his quote-unquote prime would be. That brings us to another interesting topic here. As we look at the majors, are you considering after today the Dallas Empire are the favorites to win the Stage 1 major?
I'm going to chalk this one. I don't think Dallas is the favorite. I think that they're going to be the favorites as we get about halfway through the season, similar to last year. But right now, I just don't think that they're the favorites. I mean, they've been really, really, kind of iffy and sketchy on whether or not they're pulling out these wins. I mean, they have that loss to Rocker where sure, maybe they're not, playing at their full potential. Sure, maybe there's this issue between, 20 hertz and 60 hertz with the matches they're playing and the scrims that they're playing, whatever. But I just don't think I've seen enough. It's almost kind of similar to Ultra where it's like there's a lot of individual performances that have been coming through, and those individual players are just better than I think a lot of the players on Ultra. So you just have naturally who, pulling these crazy plays, absolutely out of nowhere, similar to what Crimsix did today as well, right? Like that's a series again that LA could have maybe won if they were able to maybe play a little bit tighter at the beginning of that hard point and then close things out in the search and destroy after going 3-0 up. I mean, we could be having a totally different conversation. So I still don't think after the win today against LA that these guys are the favorites going in towards it. I personally have the favorites as Optic. I think that they've looked a lot more solid and they have a great map pool that they can kind of play around right now that a lot of other teams probably don't favor with their maps.
I'm also going to chalk this, and I think it's just because of the side of the bracket they're on and the simple statistic that the team that comes out of the lower bracket does not often win in Call of Duty overall. And I think that if they do not get through their side of the upper bracket and get to play up against Atlanta in the winners finals, if they do drop to a Chicago or a New York or even to an Atlanta, will they get back to the grand finals and beat any of those teams 2 times in a row? I don't know. I think it'd be very, very difficult to do. So if Dallas are going to be the favorites, they need to win through the winners bracket. And I think just based off of the chances of that happening alone, they're not my favorite right now. And I think if they were on the other side, if they were on Atlanta side of the bracket, I would have said yes. Another rematch versus LAT versus LAG. Yeah, I think that they absolutely would be. But yeah, that is not what we have in front of us here. So a totally different situation overall, which brings us, hey, Austin, it's our next upcoming, one of our brand new series and segments here for, what is this show called? The Defuse. I forgot for a second because I'm looking at 18 different words. We've got all these different things, but this one is Get the Trade.
This one's interesting. This one's
really
interesting. Anyone who doesn't know, a previous topic that we had or opinion that was made on the show, we then have to argue against it or argue better for it. So this is going to be interesting, I think, to say the least, because we got some hot ones for these two. We got some hot ones.
Yeah, and it starts a bit unfortunate with me. This is what happened back on episode 4, in case you missed this one.
Oh,
best team in the game right now is the Toronto Ultra. They are
the
best team in the game right now. The Toronto Ultra played such great hardpoint all the way through. They spawn manipulated better than anybody today. Atlanta's biggest weakness right now is that they are being manipulated when it comes to the back spawns. I see Toronto beating Atlanta in the majority of the hardpoints. And then the search and destroy. Search and destroy overall, I thought that Toronto, again, played very complete as a squad. Going back and rewatching over how they played Florida, yeah, you might be able to sit there and say that Florida, not the strongest opponent right now. I disagree. I think Florida played a pretty solid series overall. Toronto just played nearly perfect in a lot of the times that we saw them, both on Crossroads and on Garrison. Their Miami looks were very diverse. There were a couple of wonky things that happened that they got punished for, but I have this Toronto team, like I mentioned, winning both, if not at least one matchup next week versus Atlanta and or Chicago. I think that they are playing that well right now this early as a complete squad. They didn't win a match this week.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for that.
So that's not good news overall. And here's the thing, they did come out, and for Toronto, they did play a very good opening week versus Florida, who at the time I was like, they actually played pretty darn well. I'm okay with this. They're able to wipe the floor on not just one, but both of the hard points. Their search and destroy looked good, and they went all the way to round 5 on a control. I'm thinking, this team is not just only looking incredible in hard point, but they're also looking really complete across every single mode. They did not have that showcase. All versus Atlanta or Chicago. They're put into the 100-point club by Chicago. They barely get a search and destroy round versus LAG. I really blew this one. I really blew this one. And I want to sit here and use my time to try to defend the fact that I think Toronto can make a lower bracket run. But the simple fact of the matter is, they look like they're in pieces individually all of a sudden. That Florida game, you had great presence from Cammy and Kleenex. Bance is looking better than he's ever played in the history of his Call of Duty career. I mean, everything seemed to be going right. And then all of a sudden, you find them on hard points where 2 players are doing one thing, 2 players are doing another. And it's just like, what is happening? Where was the team that I saw versus Florida? Because the one this last week was not it.
Alan jinxing them is what happened. All right.
Okay.
We were looking perfect, Alan. Just threw us right in, and then we had to meet all these high expectations, and things just collapsed. Everything just folded in right on top of us, and now here we are where we got to make this lower run. But there is a lot of problems right now with the team.
There's a lot. It's a lot of small problems, I would say. I still look at this squad, and there's not one big problem. It's a lot of small things, which is why they're dropping all of these hard points late into the series versus Paris. They also dropped the one versus Chicago on raid and versus Atlanta on raid. There's all these little things that I think overall just need to be polished up just a touch.
I agree. I think there is some things that they need to fix, but we have mine as well. I mean, if you did not see, I had something to say about the LA Thieves on the last episode for Friday. I did, Alan. I did.
Let's listen to that.
LA Thieves, best team in the game by far right now, Alan. No one comes close. They're too damn good. I'm coming in hot for the simple reason that we got Kenny looking on form. You can see the way he was just popping 3 pieces. Like, the guy is absolutely online. We talked about the Krig maybe not being the best of weapons. Well, he's making it look like it's the best weapon in the game at times. TJ's looking like MVP form. He had a 12-0 game the other day. It was something we haven't seen in a very, very long time. I think he's extremely talented. Slasher showing and proving that he's still one of the top ARs currently in the game. And then you have just everything coming together, especially on Moscow as well. Don't play these guys on Moscow. They're too good, but I feel like LA really did showcase a lot of strengths today, and maybe we don't fully know until they play up against Optic, until they play up against FaZe. Sure, that's fine, but I think that everything is coming together.
Yeah, this one, this almost could have fit into our had bad segment, but this was a little tough, right? And I think that Dallas did take some notes away. They did not play them on Moscow, which was, I think, one of the key factors to shutting down this LA squad. But they had a lot of mistakes, and they certainly do not look like the best team in the league at the moment. So we live, we learn. But going forward, I still do not want to count this LA Thieves squad out, because there were a lot of the things that I did bring up for as far as the fact that TJ and Kenny are looking on form. Slasher, I think, is holding his own right now, and Temp is still the only one that I'm kind of just, putting a little question mark on, are we going to get top form Temp today, or are we going to get kind of Temp that is not really participating and being able to pick up the slack that needs to be picked up? That's, I think, really the only missing key that I currently have for this LA roster for them. But I still think that there's an opportunity for them to be able to make a run and make some upsets. I mean, everything that you looked at today, it was a lot of macro mistakes, a lot of things they can look over with JCap, and I think that fixing going in towards this this tournament is something that's going to be very, very possible. Just a matter of, can they do it in that limited time and be at that point that they looked against some of the teams that we maybe consider to be at the middle of the pack.
So is there still a talking point in your mind about if Temp, I mean, because there were moments where he was pulling out third AR, like just not feeling it on the SMG. Right. Do you still consider the possibility at all, because we talked about this before, of like Adraza coming in and taking the AR flex role, and then Kenny would have to relearn his role to be playing the SMG? Or what would you do, I guess, if the LA Thieves come out and let's just say they get double DFR'd here, they lose to their counterpart in LA, and they lose the lower bracket and finish, let's say, top 12? What do you do there, I think, if you're LA?
I don't think you bring in Draza for Kenny. I think Kenny has just simply looked too solid.
On the
Like
AR
I
flex?
think he's one of the best flex players I think right now, like in
Fair.
the game. Like, yeah, I mean, he just looks too good to take him out of that role right now. So yeah, personally for me, I don't know if you do make a change. I think you just give these guys more time. I mean, they're still looking great. Like as much as we see the 3-0 today, there was a really close map 1, really close map 2. Just came down to those last second factors of being able to clutch up on that 1v1 in the round 11 and then being able to close out your hard points or have a much better start towards your hard points. I think those are the keys right now for them. So yeah, I'm not too concerned with this LA roster, but definitely still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah, I just to throw it, I don't think they're going to get DFR'd. I don't see them losing to
No.
anybody in
I
that
don't think
lower
so.
bracket until they meet up against another team that comes out of the upper side of the bracket. I mean, they're definitely still a top 6 team. At worst, they're still a top 6 team.
Sure.
Hey, there's no scrap time today. The reason why
There's not.
we've got a brand new segment. This is 2 back-to-back brand new segments. Are we doing this?
Whoa, is this allowed?
I think so.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's introduce the next one. Here it is. The biggest blunders, the funniest follies. It's time for Had Bad. This is going to be epic. And I actually, when I was putting this together, I was surprised that you didn't recognize the little jingle that I put behind this.
I didn't,
Man,
but I
not a
remember listening
Zombies
to it. I'm
player.
like, oh wait, it's off one of the machines.
It's the
I can't think of which one though.
tonic. It's the Tombstone soda.
Dude.
Yeah. I was looking for something that was like, oh, I wonder if like the speed recovery one would be good. And then I was looking for all like the jingles of like COD jingles, and that one popped up, and I was like, oh, this is way too perfect. So every single week at the end of the week, we will be doing a Had Bad series where we'll be laying out the biggest blunders and the funniest follies. Now, I know that people will be a little bit butthurt about this, I'm sure at some point and another. Just keep in mind, this is all for fun. This is we all the pros and maybe not pros that are on this segment, we have the utmost respect for. So there's our piece of blundering content. And so now let's be ruthless. Here we go. Let's jump into the first ever episode of Had Bad.
Oh, look, Alan, there's a lot of ways to hit a control zone off the rip, but sticking a Semtex to your squad mate?
Yeah, Kamikaze's impactful in World War II, not great for COD. How about Neptune? Pretty speedy, eh?
Yeah, well, Apathy thinks he has the speed trap set up, but sometimes you fight the law and the law doesn't fight back. Say, Shift, do you think the Challenger players are safe in the series?
Nah, dude, Challengers players are equally up for it. I think our audience knows that, of course not. Get those S&D 101 kills, please.
Or just finishing kills. That's a good place to start, too.
Yeah, especially against Nasty because, I mean, come on, that's a good old-fashioned put down.
This must be one of the worst team names we've seen in Call of Duty history.
You know, I've always wondered, with how sticky Semtexes are, how does it avoid being stuck to your hand?
Well, maybe we assume too much after the cluster of friendly fire.
It's fair to assume that Kenny single-handedly ruins full hit fights. And hey, remember that one time that people were campaigning that Minnesota's the best team in Search and Destroy?
That or you can just assume that London is going to be broken down.
Yeah, well, Rocker should definitely be campaigning to rebrand to the Lemmings with all these solo chals. Austin, I'll take this one. Let's be honest here. That one had to hurt watching live as a Toronto fan because, damn, Aqua absolutely smokes them. But hey, this will lift your spirits. How about a good old 1v3?
This has to be the easiest ace Alex has ever seen.
Well, anything with tiny baby arms, I think, deserves a spot here in Had Bad. That's definitely where we want to be. And, well, Austin, I know you love your good Search and Destroy plays, so you knew this one was coming. Saved it for the end, just for you. How about a little 1v4 for Methods?
1v4 for Methods. I mean, look at this guy go. Methods, best player in the game. Let's be honest. Come on. In this moment right here, had bad. Like, what are they doing? They're challenging the king. Jeff Tony, way too good at what he brings to the table. And, well, he just absolutely just stomps on Aqua's throat. Look at this guy. Where's he going? He's going nowhere. Now, that is what we call being had bad.
Oh, brother.
That's fun.
Yeah, that's fun. Hey, that's Had Bad. The week's biggest follies. It's all from a place of love, though. But hey, that is what Had Bad is all about. It's going to be a really fun little piece of content. I hope that you guys enjoy overall. But with that, we've got time to do giveaways here. We are in the giveaway world and viewer question world. So we'll just kind of push the promo here for the giveaway before we start doing some viewer questions. Actually, I need to change the command because I actually do not have this set up for my chat at the moment. So let me go ahead and get the tweet really quickly to make sure you guys are good to jump on in. If you don't already follow the Defuse, try to go on over there. And you'll get a lot of little fun pieces of content that we're trying to push forward overall on the channel. But beyond that, we're also going to be giving away these CDL team packs left, right, and center, it feels like, because we're doing a bunch of them overall. So there is the link for you in the chat. That'll get you to a little bit of a post as far as where you can get entered in for the LA Thieves team pack giveaway. And with that in mind, let's start, I think, fielding some overall questions. Again, the cool thing I think about this show overall, that with this new format, is the fact that we're in a position right now where we don't talk about everything. So it does open up the world for some pretty good questions. So if you have any questions, feel free to lay them out. And in the meantime, I need to start pulling up that Gleam so I can roll who our winner is here in the near future. We got some work to do on that Had Bad segment, I think.
I think so too. I'm not gonna lie, my mouse was not cooperating with me there on the way down, and also I don't think I got to see well in Discord, but we'll work on that one, Alan. It's all good. We got a long season ahead of ourselves, don't we?
We do. Not bad for our first attempt. Oh, we've got 200 entries right now. Damn, we've got a lot of people that have entered in so far.
That is a lot of people.
Again, we'll still leave this open for a while for you guys to get in. So if you're not already in the giveaway, that command right there, exclamation point giveaway will get you to it. Isn't there still EU players in NA? Jerd, Wuskin, Zed, Dens. Do you think that London may go that route? Yes, but
possible.
It's just one of those things, and Dens is technically from Australia, by the way. Wuskin, it looks like he's just completely given up on trying to play competitively. Like, he's not playing cups,
which is unfortunate.
He's largely just streaming. And I don't think I've seen him step off of Warzone to play the regular league play yet. So that's kind of tough. I don't know. What are your thoughts? Do you think that London will still try to force in EU players, even if they're maybe not the best options?
I think so, and I can see why they do it, right? Like, for the alternative reason, like, I don't maybe necessarily understand why Ultra try and do it. Maybe besides the fact that Marky B's kind of the coach, and he probably likes working with some of those guys he's either played with before, or at least scouts out for as far as EU talent. But for London, I think their goal is to definitely try and keep the roster European much as possible for that case. And I think that there is other options, right? Like, Jerd could be an option. I think Jerd's actually been playing pretty well, and Jerd is someone who stock completely fell off from what he used to be. Like, Jerd used to be one of the top SMGs, like, out of Europe when we go back. So it is interesting.
It's just when I'm thinking of the valuation chart on individuals, now collectively that Zed team obviously played pretty darn well. How much of that though was from Zed, Dens, or Jerd, and how much of that was from Tay? Like, I feel like Tay was the reason well, first of all, Tay was the only reason why they even got to the qualifier, right? Like, they needed his points to even get in. And then beyond that, how many pop-off moments did he have in the actual Elite Series itself? I think it's just one of those things that there are just so many better options that are out there than any of those players that were just previously mentioned. If you're picking up an individual, so
sure,
it's just
will they do it?
Yeah, it just kind of feels like this brand in COVID specifically of trying to pick up English players is maybe not the best, especially when one of your most consistent players right now is the player that you're filling in for. Like, Parasite coming in is, one of the best consistent players that we've seen from London in the last 2 years, almost, outside of, Modern Warfare Finals last year.
I mean, it's just like, how much of the roster would they be willing to part with? Like, do they want to keep it at least 50-50, right? Because, again, I see why they want to do it. It's just, there is better options, I think, is really the kind of the gist that we're getting to. And looking at someone else could certainly be the solution to a lot of their problems, because I mean, they haven't won a series, so
right,
they have to be looking at something.
Why don't you think Florida can close out rounds when they get first bloods? Currently 57.14% of first blood win rate is the lowest in the league, roughly 20% lower than the league average. Wait, oh, okay. When getting a first blood, how many times do they win? They only win 50% of the time, 57% of the time when they get a first blood. It's just S&D basics, man. And let's be honest, some of those rounds that they get first bloods, there are immediate trades. So like that statistic isn't necessarily as real as it might seem to be. But when you look at some of the matches that they had versus Chicago today, some of the rounds that they had versus Paris the other day, those were some clean first bloods that they were still losing 3v4s and 2v4s to.
Yeah.
And that can't happen. You just have to play much more clean across the board from search and destroy. I mean, we've seen some really sloppy search in the last couple of days.
Yeah, I mean, is the solution just to literally always be holding someone's hand when you're about to do something? Because I mean, you saw Neptune today. Like there was a couple moments where it looked like he wanted to make a play and he was able to, or it was just like he wasn't looking to do it in like these 2v3 situations. And those are the moments where you do have to maybe look to make a solo play and not look to challenge. But it is concerning, especially when Awakening's playing the way that he is. I mean, he is the best performing search and destroy player in the league, period, at a 1.7 KD right now.
Yep.
Over the course of all their S&Ds. Like that alone, when I look at that, let's just say like I've never looked at the league and I'd look at that and I'm like, damn, Florida's got to be insane at search and destroy right now, dude. Like, what, they maybe lost like one? Like, it feels like you look at that stat and it just screams that we are successful in that game mode, which is just the complete opposite.
Look, the thing about it, and I'm going back and just double checking through some of my notes on this team's performance through search and destroy so far, like their defensive setups are pretty spread out. Like they really don't do any hand holding at all. And it allows an opportunity for Awakening and Skies. Like you think about their instances on Miami where they're on long lines of sight in those opening matches they played versus both Toronto and LAG. And they're finding a ton of first bloods and they're able to get themselves a very early 4v3, but then nothing changes after that. They're not like taking away the map together. Sometimes it's an individual that's taking away the map. Other times when they're the ones that find themselves in a 3v3 early after getting first blood, they're still staying very spread apart, where a lot of other teams will reset everything. And okay, now we're starting to play this map as if it were just the three of us from the beginning. I mean, so many early first bloods for Atlanta starts to make that look like that. I don't know. I think it's just a mindset thing that you have to adjust after whatever happens in those first 30 seconds, because it looks like this is our setup and this is what we're going to be running for the entirety of the round, no matter what happens, and that's just not what you're looking for. Hey, you got a question for Viox, though. How about this one? This is actually a good question.
Yeah, more for Austin, since he's the Ultra fan. Ultra really suffered in the S&Ds this weekend. Do you see this as just a rough patch, or do you think this is something they will constantly struggle with? I see this as a rough patch. I think S&D was something they were really strong with last game, and I think the biggest problem actually is because we had CDL Super Week and a lot of the teams were playing, there's a lot of film on everything they were doing, and Ultra didn't exactly adjust too many of the strategies. Interesting enough, we'll have a breakdown for this on the Ultra channel coming out on Tuesday, but they are really good at going in towards a matchup where you haven't seen anything off them, and they're really good at taking away a lot of map control, and they're really strong at being able to open up with these really strong engagements and find bloods, take control quickly. The problem, I think, is once that strategy gets shut down, they're like, oh man, like we just got hard countered. What do we do next? And I think the pressure starts to seep in a little bit. And I mean, what we see in some cases was, full collapses in some of their S&Ds. So a lot of teams figured out their play style, figured out how to counter it and shut it down. And once they get countered, they don't have then a play to fall back on. So I think that's the biggest factor, but I don't think it's something that's going to, really hurdle them going through the rest of the season. And it's something that I think they're just going to have to try to adapt to here going in towards stage 2.
I like that you bring up the fact that, again, it's one of those situations that they're coming in with like a very I don't want to say like a bullheaded rush, but I feel like a lot of the reason why Toronto was doing so good in search was because they were being aggressive and trying to take the map over early. And when that's not successful, it doesn't seem like there's a plan B, at least largely. That was very evident versus LAG. That's for damn sure.
Yeah, it was.
But yeah, I'm hoping that will just be a temporary thing and Marky B will get those guys kind of brushed up and ready to go. Oh, this is a good question from Loophole. Who do you think is the best player to come out of Europe in the past 5 years? I've got mine.
It's funny because I would have said Dylan.
I would have too if he played better last year or this year.
Yeah, because Black Ops 4 Dylan, right? Like that was like the number one player we felt like in a lot of eyes out of Europe for sure. So now I'm not even sure who I lean towards next. Who do you got, Alan? Because I don't know if I got
Cammy.
Oh, okay, Cammy is good.
Yeah, because
Cammy is a really good one.
He kind of grinded through the open series both in World War II and as well in Black Ops 4, gets picked up into the league, in BO4, and he's on that units team that finished top 6. Yeah. And then Modern Warfare, obviously, I think he was one of the biggest shining stars of Toronto throughout the entirety of the year. And I think that's still the case this year. So I think Cammy's would be my pick.
It's funny. I think of this Ultra roster, and I know they're all like pretty much from Europe, but like I don't think they're from Europe in a way. But yeah, Cammy absolutely, I think, is a good one for that.
I would say something like Kleenex. But I think it's just like
he's got more to prove.
He's just coming out from playing with Singularity and Black Ops 4, and then coming in late to Modern Warfare, with quotations around that. Yeah, I think that he could very well take that mantle, but I think Cammy's my pick for right now, at least.
Yeah. Who would you consider to be your favorite going to the major? I think Alan. I don't know if Alan, you gave yours. I said mine. I think
Atlanta is my favorite right now.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, I have Optic. I think is mine right now.
Rookie MVP. No show on Monday. No, it's still Wednesdays, Fridays, and Sundays during the weeks of the CDL. Is there a problem in the league with snaking and abusive mechanics, or is it overblown? I mean, we kind of watched that clip from yesterday. On the playbook, and I didn't consider that snaking. Like, crouch shoulder peeking over a heady is not the same as like going prone underneath a piece of cover that's not supposed to keep you safe to kind of. I think that it's a little overblown. I haven't seen like a bad instance of snaking in this game yet. We did see it regularly in Modern Warfare, though, I would say.
I think some players have been doing it. I noticed I think Fire had done it like on Garrison on the offense point, like right in front of lights. He was doing it a little bit. It's like so hard because like, you know, what do we define as someone going prone, popping up, and then ducking back down to cover to make sure that they're not going to be exposed to gunfire, compared to like physically like just snaking and going up and down with circle or your R3, depending on which way you have it mapped. Like, you know, where do we draw the line with it and how do we enforce it? You can't really enforce it unless you just say you can't do it at all. Well, then how do you play around cover then? Like,
right.
It's just like,
yeah.
I don't know, man. It's just like such a weird line that I don't think you can enforce. So like, I'm honestly like, this is just how it is. Like,
we talked about this a little bit last year, I want to say, and I remember very adamantly at least believing in the fact that like any piece of cover that is meant to be used as like a piece of like heady cover should be bangable, and we actually have that in the mix mostly, like outside of the ring and like around rocks and stuff like that in raid. Like a lot of the stuff that you would use as like heady cover is wall bangable in a way. I mean, save a couple of instances, but I think largely that has been less of a problem this year than it was last year. I don't know. Out of all the rookies, who are the best performances leading up to the first major? I know who I'm picking for that one.
Leading up to the first major? I mean, DC's been pretty good.
I was going to say Fire,
I mean,
actually.
Neptune's been good, too. Oh, really?
Yeah, I was going to say Fire.
I guess Fire's been good, but I don't think Fire has been, like, on my radar, like, best rookie good. I think Neptune has, just for me, like, as much as, like, Neptune has had some bad maps, like, a lot of pros have bad maps, so, like, I don't hold that to him. I hold, like, what is Neptune doing on the map? Is he making the right decisions? And I feel like Neptune is making a lot of right decisions for someone who just came in towards the scene. And you let someone like that, I think, get an extra year of time. I mean, who knows, like, what we're going to get out of Neptune going towards the next game. So I kind of have DC and Neptune for me as, like, my two rookies that I think are performing the best in like, MVP status, so to speak.
Diamond Con has had the best impact overall. I would say just like coming in and like, oh shoot, this is a last second fill in. Like, will he actually play well? And the answer has been yes. But I don't think Paris is anywhere near as good as they currently are without Fire playing the way that he's played. I still see New York, now that we know that Asim is nasty and Clayster is God. I think that with that in mind and Max stepping back up to the plate this last couple of games, I still think that there is more opportunity for someone to step into that roster and do well. Whereas for Paris, I feel like Fire is one of the main reasons why that team is playing as well as they're playing. Like between him and Scraps, like those are, I think, like two of the top overall, like consistent players in Respawn specifically. I'm not going to say not that because Classic and Aqua have been great in the search. But yeah, I've been most impressed with Fire because I think I most doubted him at the beginning of the year.
Ooh, I like this one. What team, if any, will improve the most if Sniper/Smokes return to S&D? Atlanta FaZe, right?
Has
you get a
to
scope
be. You got
in Simp's hand.
Yeah, you got Simp. It's
the best sniper player in the league.
Like, will they improve? Like they're already really good at search and destroy.
They
like,
are, but I would say they would.
I think Chicago would be a good answer as well.
Dashy,
with Dashy overall. I'm also trying to think like who's actually doing
I think
really
Ultra would be
poorly.
as well.
Yeah,
I think
Cammy's
Ultra
pretty
would
nasty
improve.
with the scope. Real talk.
Yeah, he was good last year with it. And plus, like, a smoke is like the perfect strategy for what's going wrong with Ultra, because if their fast rushes aren't working with the aggression, well then like the smoke's going to help you with that, or it's going to be able to, you know, create baits on opposite sides of the maps to be able to open up lanes and things like this. So I think Ultra would benefit from that, but the teams with the best snipers obviously I think would just get, you know, a bit of a bump for as far as improvement.
Yep. No, I think that I would go with Chicago. I mean, they're 3-3 in search right now overall as I'm looking back at the stats. And I think you put a sniper in Dashy's hands, I think they diversify their map pool more, and I think they just get overall better. Because how many times, and Proper was joking about this, it was like, how do you attack the A side on checkmate, search, and destroy? Oh, you just smoke.
Yeah, how do you?
Well, then you just trust that your sniper gets the opening. Oh, like,
wait.
But seriously, like those things would make that Chicago team, I think, extra dirty for sure.
Agreed. Express S&D over Miami.
Oh, so I think this is kind of a response to Turtle's question here. So this will be our last question before we run our giveaway. Again, exclamation point giveaway if not already entered. Get on into that. What map would you throw out for each mode?
I mean, checkmate, control, and Garrison control. Like checkmate probably over Garrison, right? Right, Alan. Right, Alan. Yeah, I think I have checkmate over Garrison if I would take that one out. It's just the problem is like, what are we putting in? I think is really the question for S&D right now. I think you got to get Garrison out. Checkmate, search and destroy is playable, but Garrison, search and destroy, dude, without a smoke or a sniper, like it's a 1-lane map. You know what I mean? It's a 1-lane map. It's highly defensive favored. You can't even get to one bomb site. Get Express in for that one. I feel like really that would be the best option.
It needs to get in for search.
It's got to get in. Like I don't know why it's not.
Yeah,
it's a great map.
I'm immediately nixing checkmate control. I mean, I have never been more bored
it's pretty
than
boring.
watching some of the checkmate controls that we've had in the last couple of days. Hard point, I'm taking out Crossroads. I think the new P4 is not going to be all that great. I haven't had a chance to cast over it or really largely watch it yet, but I don't imagine it's going to be all that fun. And this is one of those things we talked about this kind of off the air when we were talking about like what is Chicago's veto for hardpoint. And I don't remember who told me this, but what we were saying between ourselves is like good hardpoint teams are not going to want to play Crossroads hardpoint because things change like that, and you just don't know. You don't have a lot of time to like adapt and like recover from the situation at hand, at least in its current form. We actually almost made a talking point today. You know, should Crossroads be GA'd for the majors since the teams cannot practice on the current form of what they're playing on? I'm actually interested to see, like, will they bring in the new patch for majors? Like, will they be playing on new Crossroads for this major?
I think so, right? I mean,
like
if it's now the patch has been live for about a week, it's kind of what a lot of other esports kind of follow along with. It's like once the patch is out for a week, that's given you enough time to be able to learn it, understand it, play it.
Yeah, but it's been different because the entire week that the patch has been out has been a week full of matches. So like,
right, but I don't know. I mean, there was other changes as well, right? I mean, I don't think the smokes are viable, but like that was also something that was added. So can't have one without the other unless you just completely GA it. So hard to say. I'm not sure.
Last question for real. What old map from any COD do you think would fit into this game?
Lucas knows my answer because I love Meltdown S&D because that was my map. But I think Standoff would be the map to bring in because Standoff, you could play it probably on every single game mode. On Control, you could put it in Courtyard, and you could put it by Tractor, where both bomb sites would essentially be by. It'd be also good for a CTF map if you wanted to bring that in for like a 4th game mode. And I feel like S&D, it plays beautifully for as far as the lanes that you have back alley, through the middle of the map, everything. Standoff is just without a doubt the map you'd bring in.
I'm going to throw a curveball. This is going to be flamed so hard. Please do not clip this. I want to change it up. The thing about it is I do not want to be in a world where it's this game has now become Black Ops 2 Remastered. How do you think Hackney Yard would form in 4v4?
In 4v4, Alan? You want to get Hackney Yarded again?
It's not going to be nearly as bad with 4. That's the thing. Like,
it wouldn't be, but
I would be interested. To see Hackney Yard in 4v4.
But like, why Hackney Yard when you have all these?
Because I don't want to see Black Ops 2 Remastered.
Sure, okay, Warhawk, Octane, boom. strike zone, boom. You know, I don't know.
I just wanted to trick everybody. I'm just saying. I think that'd be really funny. No, Gunrunner would actually be better. I think Gunrunner would be a little large. I don't know. I actually really like Gunrunner. We were looking at it earlier, and it was pretty fun. I don't know. I just wanted to trigger you. That was fun. That was good times. But I am interested to see how it plays on 4v4. But no, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
All right, let's do this giveaway that we didn't do from earlier, and then we'll say farewell for now. It looks like everyone has mostly gotten in. So let's go ahead and hit the draw button. If Quattro Hockey wins this, I'm going to lose my freaking mind. Let's see here.
No chance.
No chance, dude. Not twice. Surely not.
No,
The winner is... drumroll. Abdulrahman Al-Saf. Does not have his Twitter link, but does have his email. He's from Bartlett, Illinois. Hey, I actually grew up pretty close to Bartlett, Illinois. And the action that won it was following Defuse on Spotify, which brings us to our closing point. Make sure you're following the Defuse on all your favorite podcast providers. If you're listening to the podcast forum right now, you can also check out the show live. Austin, Wednesday, Majors. That's when we'll be back. Are you pumped? You ready? Excited?
More Call of Duty. I'm always ready, Alan. I mean, we got like 7 days of Call of Duty, and now it's gonna be weird not seeing more Call of Duty up until Wednesday. So you already know I'm ready and counting down the days.
What is that? Another 6 days worth in a row? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days in a row.
Right.
So we get 12 days in a 14-day period. I don't know. I feel like we're getting a little bit spoiled. Maybe you guys are as well. Hope you guys enjoyed the news segments. We'll catch you guys back here next time for the Defuse on Wednesday. But until that point, hope that your fuse doesn't fizzle out. So long.